What if we hadn't met? By Benjamin Johnson. I watched them leave, the Witcher, his companion. I wanted to move my legs, to run after them, to scream, to yell, to cry. The answer had looked at me. The answer was leaving. I couldn't move. I could see it, the way they'd looked at me as the bookshelf came crashing down. Another, as all the knives pierced their skin. I put my head down on the table and shed a few quiet tears. What was I doing? I had to ask for help eventually, right? Before I could doubt myself, I ran out of the tavern, getting weird looks but not caring. The few days I'd been here had softened them up to me, even if I was a Kenku. I burst out the door, looking around wildly for that distinctive white hair, that unique armor, any of it. I saw nothing. Just normal people. People who couldn't help me. People who would run if they knew, rightly so. I felt the tears returning. In a blur, I ran over to the side stable, finding mine. My pony looked down at me, though not much, since I was about as tall as it. I threw my arms around her neck. I messed up, Cookie, I whispered softly. I could almost imagine her head curling around me, like a hug in return. I took a step back, taking deep breaths. I couldn't afford to be this wound up. Tomorrow was the equinox, and that meant I had to have my emotions totally under control. I could do this. I could do this. I looked Cookie in the eye, trying to look brave. I'm going to follow them, I declared. Cookie seemed to nod in agreement. I ran off down the street, asking various people if they'd seen a witcher just pass by. Following their trail brought me out of the city, and I thought of going back for Cookie, but at this point that might be more time-consuming than just moving forward. So I did. Finally, after jogging for far too long, I saw two horses left on a doorstep, tied up. And the sight beyond? I averted my eyes quickly. Blood. Blood all over the ground. I took a breath and another quick peek before turning away. Chickens. That was good, at least. Not a person. Not a person. Not a person. I moved past it, following the two pairs of footsteps. I was on the right track. I could catch them on their way back from killing whatever did that, and I could ask for help, and everything would be fine. I had messed up, yes, but it was fixable. Never give up. I heard the sound of chewing and slowed my footsteps. I suddenly felt much less confident, but I couldn't turn back again. I continued forward. I passed through a small ravine before seeing, I, what, what, how? I saw a monster, seeming like it was almost made of shadow, eating. It was eating, eating. I knew them. Their white hair. Distinctive. It heard me. It ceased eating. It looked towards me. I was dead. I was going to die. It was hurt. It was charging me. All I could think to do was thrust out a claw with my holy symbol clasped and pray. A beam of silver light fell from nothing onto the beast, clearly burning it, but it was still charging me. I was going to die. It leaped at me, but was suddenly stopped in the air, and, with a whimper of pain, it was ripped in half by seemingly nothing. And the light faded, and it was quiet. I stood on unsteady feet and toddled forward, stunned. The Witcher lay before me, clearly dead. I knelt beside him, taking a hand and forcing healing power in, but no miracle occurred. It was dead. I looked up, into empty eyes gazing at me from not far away, of some man in simple clothing, chest eviscerated. It must have been the previous meal. I looked around more and saw the armored companion crumpled on rocks. I should be dead. Why wasn't I? Why were they? Couldn't I have done something? I walked a bit away before sitting on a log, just looking out over all of it. I didn't know if I wanted to laugh or to cry, scream, anything. I did nothing. How fitting. Finally, I stood. At the very least, I could try and make the best of the situation. Optimism. I needed to gain some semblance of control back, or tomorrow would be awful. So I headed back to the corpse. And, Closing my eyes, pulled the wolf head necklace off of its neck. I put it in a pocket. I had some understanding of their importance. I could only help it would help in my trip. With nothing else to do, I started making my way out of the woods. I was alive. I was alive. They weren't alive. I banished the thought. I was alive. As the path finally brought me out of the woods, I looked at the blood smeared everywhere. Just chickens. Are you okay? I heard a woman's voice and turned slightly to it. As her eyes met mine, she slowed down. What happened out there? I took a breath, not even sure what to say. They're dead. She fell to her knees. All? I only nodded. She began to sob. My eyes found the sun. I needed to get back. Sundown was coming, and it was a long walk back. I thought about the horses, but they're too tall for me. The woman could have them. I left her crying and began the walk back to the town proper. My feet hurt. Everything hurt. My pocket with the necklace burned. I wasn't dead. Why wasn't I dead? Why couldn't it be me? I made it back barely by sundown and dragged myself up to the room, not even having time for tea downstairs. I just have to quickly throw it together in my room, which I did, and slept. I tried breathing evenly. It wasn't working. I could only see one scene in my mind. The next morning, my eyes rose with the sun, but I felt no urge to move. I had wanted to go to the Festival of Falling Leaves today, but with my emotions how they were, it just wouldn't be safe. I felt a twinge of jealousy for the voices I heard passing by the window. They didn't have to worry about just going outside ending with people dead. I tried not to think about that. Even envy was a bad thing to have today. Contentment. Happiness. Instead, I could only curl up. I wasn't even allowed to pity myself. But here I felt that break down. I could feel it responding. The shadows in the room seemed to grow longer and deeper. Everything felt colder. I tried to calm down, breathing. I squeezed my claws together rhythmically. In my head, I tried to go through fairy tales, children's stories, but that only made me start to cry. Fine, I decided. Today was a sad day. I wasn't leaving the room, so it wasn't like it mattered anyway. I hadn't mentioned that I wasn't coming out today, so I wouldn't get any food, but that was fine. Today, I could go hungry. I took a book and tried reading it, but my focus kept slipping off the pages. So I gave up, just laid back, and stared at the ceiling. The horn blew, signaling the start of the festival. Almost despite myself, I rose and went to the window, watching the crowd start to flow in that direction. Suddenly, to my shock and that of those on the street, someone with hair that was seemingly on fire ran through the streets, heading towards the festival. Curiosity bid me follow them, and I almost did, turning towards the door, but I paused. I couldn't leave the room. I wasn't in the shape to leave the room. Stay here. Stay. I went back to the bed and lay there and lay there. There. I lay. I lay here. Laying. I was laying. I am laying. I would be laying. Layers. Sheets. On the sheets. Top layer. Lay on the top sheet. Lay on the top layer. I sat up. I paced. Forward. Turn. Forward. Turn. Forward. Backwards. The floor creaks. I creak back at it. I start looking for things to make noises with and repeating the noise back. Tapping the wall. Patting the bed. Scratching the glass. Turning the pages of the book I hadn't put away. I run through my languages, practicing phrases. I created conversations with myself in multiple voices. I recreated conversations I'd had. Eventually, I ended up by the window again. Time felt like it wasn't even passing, until I suddenly looked up to see smoke rising into the air, and screams. Screaming. More. Why? Guards began moving in that direction. I should go help. I should. I did nothing. Why change that now? I went back to my nothing. I tried more reading. I messed with more objects. I tried drawing on some stray paper. Everything came out misshapen. Wrong. I did nothing. The screams faded. The smoke faded. There was crying. People asked what happened outside the window. There was an attack. Many died. The guards got there too late. I couldn't close my ears. I had been good. I'd stayed in the room. But my bad luck went out there anyway. Somehow I had once again been bested. Finally, I could see it. The sky was turning dark. I could finally down my tea and go to sleep. Sleep what I hadn't done away. The next morning, I left. My room, the tavern, the town. Cookie rode me out when the sky had barely begun to become colorful again. There was no more time to waste. Cookie and I made our way west, then north, only passing through a single city on the way. Every day was the same. Empty. Boring. I felt tired. How was that possible? I slept from dusk till dawn. How could I be tired? Even cookie hugs couldn't seem to wake me up, make me feel better. Finally, I reached the mountain pass. The guards looked at me. I need to get through. And why should we let you? One smirked. Reaching into my pocket, I pulled out the wolf head necklace I had taken from The Witcher, a picture I quickly stopped remembering. I need to return this. The guards looked into my eyes, and then finally assented. I paid the toll and rode through. Emerging from the other side after a long trek, I could see the massive volcano in the distance that always dominated the skyline here. It was smoking. Still, nothing to do but continue. So I did. A few days later, as I neared the woods, I could hear a large rumbling behind me, and looking back I saw tons of snow descending onto the pass I had just left. I had been lucky to get through when I did. Something was watching me. I felt desperately like I should care, but why bother? Whatever it was, it didn't change anything. Nothing. Like always. Finally, after so much traveling, I managed to reach the castle. We went up to the door and in, to be greeted by a very surprised old-looking witcher. He explained it was quite early in the year for people to get here. I gave him the necklace and explained my problem. He took the necklace solemnly and listened to my predicament. I explained that it talked occasionally and moved things around and was more active at night, during full moons and on equinoxes and solstices. He thought through it before finally coming up with a judgment. I think it's a poltergeist, he finally told me, which is tricky, but I should be able to handle it. So, on the night of the full moon, we were in the courtyard. It was snowing. He had his silver sword at the ready. I was ready as well, armored holy symbol in hand. We were going to take down my shadow together. But as the moon rose higher into the sky, I felt odd. Everything was fading. Darkness on the edge of my vision. Help? Everything was gone, until I was back. Everything was cold. I was lightly covered in snow. I had passed out? Rising back to my feet, my blood ran cold as the snow. The Witcher lay before me, a bloody mess, the snow around him red as a bouquet of roses. I went up to him and took a hand. Healing did nothing. I let go of its hand. Looking at the wall next to it, I could see the writing. In blood. A single word. Demon. The corpse must have wrote it for me. Demon? Demon. Demon. What now? I fell back into the snow. What else was there to do? I surrendered to the elements and just closed my eyes, falling back asleep. Of course, the next morning I woke up again, not even feeling cold. All the snow around me had been pushed back. Demon. I stood up, and the warm aura was gone. Demon. Of course I was still alive. Wasn't that part of the curse? A demon. The corpse was no longer visible, buried under snow, and here I was, alive, alone, again. I made my way to Cookie. They were okay. My one light. I gave them a hug. What was left to do? What I had always been doing. Nothing. In the most damaging way possible. I couldn't stay here. When the other witches returned, I would be held as a murderer, rightfully, and they would try to kill me. But in all likelihood, they would fail. Wasn't that supposed to be a good thing? I took Cookie and set out for the volcano. Were there answers there? Maybe. Maybe. Probably not. But what else was there to do? Nothing. I was alive. They weren't. None of them were. The snowy expanse stretched away endlessly.